everyone, welcome again to Life with Debs. I am so happy to see you today. Today we're pursuing with our series on health with our special guest, Merveille. Without further ado, let her introduce herself. Hi Merveille, how are you?
I'm good.
I'm so happy to get you here, finally.
Yeah.
It was hard to get you.
It was.
But we finally got you here. So today I want us to talk about something that has been going on in this world for, I would say, almost 4 years now.
Yeah.
I'm talking about COVID-19. So can you tell us a little bit why is it called COVID-19 and not COVID-20?
Yeah, so basically COVID-19 is just the label that they gave it because in 2019 it was the virus that was infecting people. So they kind of just, it was called the SARS-CoV-2 virus, and they just pushed it all together and just called it COVID-19.
Okay.
So that there have been a lot of coronavirus strands in the past, and this one was just the one in 2019 that, you know, sent us into what we've been dealing with since then.
Okay, I understand. So what makes it different from the previous strain from the past?
I don't know. I can't speak too much to that. I haven't really studied it, but just based off of observation and what we've all been experiencing, the efficacy and how it's affected people, like just shutting down pretty much all of our healthcare systems. It's just like the first thing we've seen of it. You know, that's kind of what I feel like it made it different.
Okay, I do understand. So whenever it first started, I feel like it's something that people didn't take quite seriously.
Right.
At least toward the end of 2019. And then when we got to 2020, bam, suddenly a pandemic. So how was it like for healthcare worker? How was it like?
Yeah, honestly, I think from start to now, for me, it started off just like everybody else because when it started, it was the top half of 2020, and I was still in nursing school. So I was just like everyone else saying, wash your hands, it's not that big of a deal. And then I think like everyone else, as more information started to come out and we started to see more results, it was like, oh wow, like this is way bigger than I could have ever imagined it to be. And then when I got further into healthcare and I graduated from nursing school and started working, that's when I started to see face and hand-on how it was really impacting people on a personal level.
Okay. So do you think it's more dangerous than what it seems like, or it's actually dangerous?
I think it is dangerous. I think a lot of things is perception. I think seeing people's reaction to this whole pandemic and how it played out showed me a lot about human psychology. I think when you're communicating with people, it's extremely difficult to communicate with someone against their moral beliefs. So if somebody's yelling and saying, I don't want to do this, or I don't want to wear a mask, or I don't want to do that, you have to extrapolate what they're saying and take it on a basic level and understand that what they're trying to say is, I don't want to be constricted. And as a healthcare worker, I don't have a choice. I don't get to say, I'm not going to listen to this person, or I'm only going to listen to this person who I agree with. I have to treat everybody. So in order to have a conducive relationship between provider and patient, I have to get on their level and understand where they're coming from so that it can be a good thing going forward, because they got very heated. You would walk into patients' rooms, they're like, if you have it, I don't want to do this or I don't want to do that. So you had to really try to understand and hear people. And in real life, you can understand how, like, when you have a conversation with someone in real life versus on the internet, it's like two different worlds, you know? In real life, it's like there's more nuance. I can see your face. I can see you twitch if I said something that was offensive to you. I can adjust my conversation. Versus online, there's no nuance. People can say whatever, and you can really say something aggressive and have no kind of repercussion or recourse for what you're saying. So it really just taught me a lot about how to communicate with people and have difficult conversations.
Okay, and personally for you, how did it change the way that you live life?
I'm more careful. You know, I think there were some things that I think we were doing before that I'm like, why were we ever doing this? Why were we ever at concerts next to each other, sandwiched next to each other, not giving each other space? Why did we ever go to the gym without them cleaning the equipment? Like, I went to the gym and they were saying, yeah, we just added new equipment to clean it down. And I'm like, you didn't have this before? Like, people are sweating. So it just made me be more aware of my environment. I don't want to be scared and live life like, oh, I can't do this, I can't do that. But I think in the beginning I was scared because my dad was washing our fruits with the water in the sink. I mean, everybody was doing kind of, when we didn't know what was going on, people wearing masks in the car when it was just them by themselves. So it was just like a learning environment. It was the same for me as it was for everyone else. The only time where I would say my experience differed was seeing the death. Okay. That part was different, and when I had to start experiencing that, I had to take myself off social media because I felt like I was being gaslighted, because I was experiencing things in real life and seeing it happen, and it was affecting me. And then I would go on the internet, and you know how you can see what people like on the discovery page on Instagram. Yeah. So I'd be seeing my own friends or people that I knew like liking things, saying this is a conspiracy. I'm like, how? You know, it's really happening. So yeah.
Okay. Because I remember at one point thinking that it was fake.
Yeah.
It was a conspiracy. But then I have a dad who is a physician. Right. So I'm like, instead of assuming that, let me give him a call. And I was like, Dad, can you please explain me what is that disease? Because is it real? Is it a myth? Is it something that the media made up? And he gave me an explanation, and I understood that, oh, okay, it's kind of serious. And knowing that some of the people that are dear to me almost got it, it was quite shocking, you know. And as far as the social part, by nature, I can be very reserved, but I was very annoyed with the social distance. And I asked myself, why am I annoyed? Because normally on a regular basis, you don't interact much with people. But I think my real issue was that I wanted to have that freedom. Okay, if I want to go hang out with Merveille, I can do that. Not fearing that, okay, if I step out of my apartment, I could be arrested or I would be required to put on a mask, which I didn't like because I was suffocating on the inside. And I was asking myself, no, for real, I was asking myself, how is it supposed to protect me when it makes me feel uncomfortable? Because I feel like I have short of breath because of that. But the more I will look at the news, and I understood that it's not a conspiracy, it's something that are real.
That's understandable. I think there's something to learn about. You have to take into account, and I'm just thinking from a provider perspective, you have to take into account someone's personal experience and the world at large. You're gonna miss a lot of, if you care about reaching the most amount of people that you can reach, and if you care about as many people listening to you as possible, you have to take into account that if you totally absolve someone's individual experience, they don't care. And as annoying as that can be for some people who naturally can absolve their personal experience and kind of look at it at large, but if someone's like, I feel this way and it's making me feel this way, you have to kind of speak to it. And it's amazing what can happen when empathy enters a conversation. I had conversations take a complete turn when I wasn't coming in as I was better than people. Like, I know this, I've seen this, you need to do this. It was more of like, tell me your experience, what have you been through? What are you thinking? What are your concerns? And the conversation completely changes, because now it's not me versus you, it's us versus this.
Oh, okay, I understand. So what are the symptoms?
Yeah, so it's kind of, depending on the strand, there were different symptoms. So we had the first wave that hit in 2020 that was just, the biggest part was like the loss of taste and smell that a lot of people felt, the body aches, and then there was the Delta variant and then the Omicron variant, and then there have been subsequent variants. And that's just how a virus is. It adapts, it changes, it takes on new genetic material, and it just continuously changes, and that's why you have different strands. But one of the biggest things that people noticed were like just the severe body aches. And after a while, we pretty much started calling it a respiratory virus, because that's how we're treating it in the hospital. We're giving, you know, certain medications. A lot of them have to be put on additional oxygenation because they just start to deteriorate really badly. And then a lot of people after getting COVID talked about having a lot of after effects, you know, like afterwards, my memory's gotten worse, or this has happened, or I still get lingering shortness of breath when I go to the gym. So it's still super early on, because you know in science and medicine, they go hundreds of years of evidence and then they build out, you know, an outcome. So we're still really in the infantry stage of COVID. We don't really know still what it is and what it entails.
So would you say that it's ending, or we're still in there?
I would say we're still in it. I would say obviously the regulations have changed, and I'm not, you know, the people who decide. I'm not the CDC, so I just try to go off of what I see, and then what I want to do for myself. I know that whenever I'm in the hospital, it's insane to me that we never wore, like before the pandemic, there weren't masks in the hospital. And I feel like in the hospital, you should always have a mask. People are sneezing, people are sick. It's just, I think it's a good idea. But in our specific nursing and, you know, our little stations, they say, hey, you can take off your mask when you're around the other nurses together, which I do, because having it on 24/7, it can be tiring, it's itchy, it's like, I want to take it off sometimes. But I would say, you know, I think we're not where we were because we have more information, but we're not as good as we're going to be 5 years from now. But I think seeing people's faces, people being able to go out and do things, I enjoy it. I think it's a good thing to have a balance, because people's mental health did take a dive with everything that happened. So I kind of like that we're getting back to some normalcy.
Mine really took a hit. I remember when I first heard about the disease, I had the sudden thought that I would die early, or I will lose my parent, all kind of thoughts. And I was really scared. And today I ask myself, are we ever gonna go back to the world pre-COVID? I am grateful for the fact that we can still go out, we can still hang out with friends, family, but even with that, I feel like things are just not the same.
Yeah.
Although you see what I mean, right?
Yeah, but you know, things aren't the same, but sometimes the same isn't always good. I think it's good now going forward to know we should be a little bit more aware of where we place ourselves if we're sick. Now I think it's more normalized. Hey, if I have the flu or if I'm sick, I'm gonna wear a mask because I don't want to get other people sick. That's something that people used to not do. And now if we see somebody wearing a mask, we're not gonna be like, what do they have? Like, that's weird. We're not even gonna care because we've been doing it. But I get it too. Like, as soon as I turned 21, the world shut down. And I was like, what the heck?
Yeah.
I was like, you know, I just started, you know, being a complete adult, and then everything shut down. So I felt that sense of resentment that everybody else felt. But I think we do have a duty, in my opinion, I feel like we have a duty at large to society, and there's certain things that might be an inconvenience to me that I'm still gonna do because it benefits everybody at large.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And the other question that I'm thinking about asking you, what do you think should be the role or the attitude of a believer or of a Christian toward the pandemic?
Right.
What do I mean by that is that whenever the pandemic was raging, you could hear different kind of things. Or the disease is there, we don't have to wash our hands because we have the blood of Jesus again. I'm not throwing shade, but you know, I'm just saying what
we heard some things.
Yeah, so I'm saying what I've heard. Or we have the blood of Jesus, or we cannot go to the hospital. The Holy Spirit is covering us. And me, by nature, I like to reason. I like to understand the what behind the why. So for me, it's not enough to be a believer to know that, okay, maybe to know that Jesus is Lord and Savior, but I believe that there is also a reason why we have intelligence, and it is for us to prevent certain things. So would you say that as a Christian, we shouldn't try hard to take care of ourselves in the sake of having faith?
I mean, I think this is interesting. My dad said this to me when I was like 5 or 6 years old, and it stuck by me ever since then. It was like, we were at the grocery store and we were coming out, and he was like, you see how all these people are like leaving their carts, like they're putting it up by the grass and they're not putting it back all the way? And he was like, you need to always bring it back. It's important to follow rules. Even if you don't want to do them, you need to follow the basic rules. And ever since that, I mean, I'm kind of, if I'm being honest, I'm a little bit internally a little bit of a rebel. Like, if I see something and it's like a rule and I feel like there's not a good reason, I'm going to question it. I'm like, why should I have to do that? And I feel like my dad probably had foresight, and that's why he told me that when I was younger. But honestly, I think as a Christian, God gave us free will. God gave us intellect. These things that we have existed, science, medicine, the ability to reason and think, God gave these things to us. So I think it's such a sad thing when you see extremely intelligent Christians who can go and read a physics book and they can be applicable with that and understand that this little thing actually becomes this thing, or that this thing isn't verbatim saying you do this, but you have to apply it and put it out into the world. They don't apply that same intellect with the Bible. And so I think that your health is important. Your body is your temple, and you have to take care of it, what you put into it. And so I think, you know, people had different opinions of philosophy. They thought maybe, you know, doing this isn't in accordance with Christ, but I can't see what's more in accordance when they're saying this is what's going to help your sister and your brothers next to you. Do this even if it doesn't benefit you. That's selflessness, doing something that doesn't benefit you but benefits somebody else and a lot of other people. I think that's how I viewed it.
Oh, okay. Me, one thing I will say about it is we have one body.
Yeah.
Human being, we have three parts. We have a spirit, we have a soul, we have a body, and the way we learn it in college is that all of them are interconnected, meaning that they work together. So I feel like spiritual health is as important as your physical health. And I don't think it is wise to jeopardize your physical health in the sake of faith. God will protect, God will provide. But I believe that sometimes God's protection is also hidden in prevention. Why would I make myself sick and then go on later, fast and pray and call upon the name of God when I could have prevented it? Because that would be like a waste of time, if I can call it like that. And also we have one body with which we serve God. If you do not take care of your body, then you will not be productive. And then if you are not productive, then your assignment, your purpose is hindered. And if it is hindered, then what is left, you know? So what is your advice for Christian or for believer in regard to not only this pandemic, but pandemic in general? Like, what should be the right attitude to adopt? Should we just focus on praying only, or should we have to prayer, medicine, going to the hospital, getting tested? What do you think? What is your advice?
I feel like I've learned enough to know that I'm never going to be in a position to give mass advice, because I'll say something and the next day my opinion changes. But what I can say is that just do the right thing. I think that's the best thing that I can say is if it's in accordance and it's just and it's correct according to the Bible, because our opinion of what the truth is, and people like to say my truths, that's something that can change every single day depending on how you're feeling. So if it's in accordance with the Bible, then you're doing the right thing. If the laws of the land are telling you to do this, it's up to you to kind of figure out, is this really one of those situations where it's me having to stick up for my faith, or is this just me doing what's best for the culture at large? Not everything is a battle. I think some people get stuck in a sort of a story, and in their mind they're like, oh, we're fighting for this thing, so they make everything a fight, and not everything's a fight. Some things is just, no, this is in your best interest.
Okay. And then we have a group of believers who suddenly become activists where it shouldn't be. It's just about the disease. We just need to find a way to protect as many people as we can and prevent people from getting sick. Yeah,
do what you feel is comfortable too. Like when you were just talking about all of a sudden people think they're activists too. It's like wherever you feel safe on the podium, that's where you need to be. That's where you're going to be the most effective. A lot of people allow their pride to lead them in a place that they weren't meant to be. So there are some people that are meant to be behind the camera. There are some people that are meant to be in front of the camera. There are some people that are meant to be on the stage directing. There are some people that are meant to be directed. There are some people that should be cleaning the back. There are some people that should be bringing the supplies. And when everybody works together and understands, this is my role, that's when I think people are going to be finding a place in this pandemic and just in life at large. This is the first thing that kind of taught us our plans are laughable. We can plan things out, and people had plans 10 years in advance that got crumbled in these last couple of years. Oh, I'm gonna have a house built there. All those workers quit because they weren't getting paid. You see what I'm saying? So it's just about understanding that we actually don't have the answers. Trying our best and doing what we can with what we have, and just putting all of our energy into today, because you're not necessarily guaranteed tomorrow. That's what I would say.
Oh, okay. Okay, thank you so much for your input today. It was really nice having you. And I feel like now I get a better understanding of what the pandemic is like. And also one of my takeaways that COVID doesn't have to be that issue or that matter that we turn into activism, you know.
Or fight, yeah.
Or fight, or I'm defending this cause, I'm defending that cause. Because if you have cancer and you can go to the hospital and get screened, me, this is how I like to see it. Okay, if I was to be diagnosed with some sort of respiratory disease, eventually I will go to the doctor. So to me, COVID is kind of like that. I don't feel well, I go to the doctor, I get checked, I get prescribed medicine, I take it, and I go on with my day. It doesn't have to be, I'm defending this. You see what I mean? I'm defending this cause. It doesn't have to be like that.
It doesn't.
Thank you so much for coming. It
Absolutely.
was nice having you.
I'd like to come again at some point in time.
I would love to have you again. See you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for tuning in today. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I will see you soon for the next episode of the series. Bye-bye.